Hey everyone! Today I'm joined with Rich Kahn, a digital marketing veteran and serial entrepreneur who helps businesses protect their ad spend and grow through smarter, fraud-free digital advertising. Rich is a co-founder and CEO of Azanga and Anura, with over 31 years of experience in digital advertising and a track record that includes Inc. 5000 recognition and Ernest and Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Welcome, Rich.
Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for being with us. So, how'd you get to where you are today?
Uh, I've always had a knack for computing, for programming and stuff like that. In fact, I wrote my first game when I was 9 years old. I got published in a magazine when I was 12 for writing different types of code and stuff like that. So I always found that easy. Worked my way through college selling. So when I was done, selling and programming kind of natural fit for the digital marketing space. I believe it was September 1st, 1991, the internet became public. 93, I found out about it and got on it, and it was like just enthralled. But it was all geeky stuff because there was no point and click. It was all command line driven. It was all real techie at the time. So what I did is I was doing a lot of research on it because I was just enthralled by the whole thing of worldwide computers connecting to each other. And I got the idea to start writing basically a small online e-magazine. And as I was putting this together, I figured let me troll AOL news groups and let people know, hey, I'm putting this newsletter together just talking about what's going on with the internet's free. I ended up in a short period of time, I think it was about 6 months, I ended up with like 20,000 opt-in subscribers. And then somebody turned around and said, hey, can I advertise in your magazine? My first digital marketing company. And it's just progressed. I've been doing all kinds of stuff in this space and writing code and doing all kinds of stuff. And in 2003, my wife and I started another company. It was a marketing company. I always tell people, think of Google, but way smaller. Text-based advertising, it was kind of real popular back then. And we built the system. And shortly after we built it, all of a sudden we started hearing some complaints about traffic quality. So I looked into it and realized it was fraud. And I remember telling my wife, I don't want to be the guy solving fraud. I literally just want to build my network and grow the client base. And so let me go find a fraud solution, bolt it onto our platform and call it a day. And in 2000, I guess this was 2004 era at this point, nothing existed. In fact, the first commercially available solution didn't come out until about 2008, 2009. So as a developer, I wrote the code myself and it worked great, solved the problem, and continued to evolve that as fraud evolved. And then 10 years later, I looked up and I got people asking to use the technology outside of our network. And that's when Anura was born.
That's cool. So, who are your target audience these days?
It's really people that are spending money on digital marketing, and it could be any channel. It could be programmatic, affiliate, pay-per-click like Google, Facebook. It could be native networks like Taboola and Outbrain. Pretty much any channel they're spending money on, we can protect their budget from being exposed to bots, malware, human fraud farms, AI bots, things like that. So we focus on people that are spending money in that direction. And our job is to help them identify where the fraud's coming from, protect their website if it needs protection, and then being able to help them to mitigate and reduce the amount of money that's going towards fraud so they can see a higher lift in ROI.
So, how do you get in front of these people?
That's the age-old question that you're always trying to figure out a way to find these people because most people know they have a problem, but they don't know how to look that problem up. So what we've been doing a really good job of is writing blogs and ebooks consistently. According to SEMrush, we're the most visible fraud detection company in the market. So we've been doing a great job. This way, if somebody's typing in a keyword that's remotely related to what we do, our name is typically the first name that pops up, which is great. We get a lot of organic traffic that way. We do some paid advertising on different networks. Probably our best channel is trade shows. We do anywhere from 15 to 20 trade shows a year. Send a team out to each of the trade shows. They have conversations. If the conversations make sense, then they bring them back, put them into our CRM, and start working the leads.
So, sorry for my naivety on this or my ignorance on this. So, when you're talking about the fraud protection aspect, is it that the information isn't safe on your website, or how exactly are you?
Where we play mostly is when you're paying for marketing and fraudsters find a way to send fake clicks and fake impressions to your ad campaign. So now, on average, we find 25% of all digital marketing is fraud. So for every dollar you spend, 25 cents of that is being lost or not exposed to a real audience, which means zero conversion, which lowers your ROI. So our job is to identify that, try to minimize or eliminate that so that your budget goes towards an audience that has a possibility of converting. Again, picking up your ROI. In addition to that, we can also protect websites. When somebody comes to the website and we identify them as fraudulent, and we do that very quickly, then they can do something with that visitor. So I always ask, lots of clients do different things. We always ask a client, okay, now you know this person is fraudulent. What do you want them to do? And a lot of times, oh, I don't want them on the website. I don't want them filling out my forms. I don't want them making credit card purchases. Like there's things that they want to protect. We can give them that protection in real time. So it depends on the client. Usually a client uses both, the advertising aspect because they're spending money there and protecting the website at the same time.
So, in the advertising aspect of it, so this works like I can implement it with Facebook or Google Ads and all sorts of
Yeah.
platforms for the ads.
Yeah. We haven't come across a platform that we don't integrate with.
That's
So
cool.
every time there's a client that wants to integrate into a new platform, we can write the code for it and get them set up with it. So it's really not that difficult. So if they're doing Google, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever they're doing, we have a way to integrate with that network and help them mitigate that fraud.
So is it hard for me to integrate that with my system, or is it just a source code aspect?
It's, for the most part, it's a simple piece of JavaScript code that you drop on your page. We customize it to what your needs are. We're also pre-built in the Google Tag Manager, which I heard 75% of the websites run on. So you just go in there, find Anura. We tell you how to find it. Check a couple boxes, put your code in there, hit go, and you're literally up and running without technical resources. So it can be deployed without having a developer on hand.
That's cool. So, what do you like about what you do?
Probably the most rewarding thing that happens, which I enjoy, is having conversations with customers that once they get it implemented and they start taking advantage of our advice and doing what we're describing, it usually takes a couple months for them to see this. They start to see a dynamic shift in their business. It usually increases performance. They start feeling at the bottom line. They start seeing bigger profits. And I get that call. It says, oh my God, you transformed my business. You know, those kind of conversations I enjoy having because we know what we're doing. And a lot of people come to us and like, is it snake oil? What is it? Is it real? Is it just a number on the screen? And I get that because there's a lot of small companies out there that really don't solve fraud. They put fancy shows on to make it look like they're solving fraud. Meanwhile, we've been doing this for over 20 years and we're certified by different organizations that we're doing the right job. So when we get that phone call, that's what makes it all worth it, is just hearing how we're helping them grow their business. And it's amazing to see business after business after business just calling us up and giving us that advice, or watching the surveys that go out, because we send out the customer surveys and getting the responses back that they're extremely happy with the speed of support and how things work. And then they start referring new business to us. So that's always a good thing.
Does their bottom line improve because that 25% is no longer there?
The way, because it's like, it's almost impossible to get down to 0% fraud. But as we reduce it, they start feeling the difference. Because now let's say if they're spending $100,000 a month in digital marketing, $25,000 being lost to fraud. Let's say we cut that in half in the first 90 days, which is usually a goal of ours, like depending on how they're set up and what they want to do. All of a sudden, there's now $12,500 that is now getting exposed to a real audience with conversion value, where before there was no conversion value. So they start to see that, and it starts to show up in their numbers, and then they start to realize the effect of what our software is, that it's not just a number on a screen, it's real data and stuff that they can make real decisions with.
How do you track that the fraud aspect's gone down?
We have a dashboard. So it literally, as traffic's flowing into their website, we can see exactly how much fraud is still coming in. So what's neat is when we first take on a new client, I'm a developer, I want to solve a problem, right? So the first thing we built when we built the company was, let's run a free trial. Let's scan their traffic and find out, hey, do they have a problem that we can solve? And it's almost always yes. There's always something there to solve, right? But we want to see, maybe they're doing a really good job and they have a very low fraud rate and they're willing to live with the fraud rate. Most companies don't want any fraud and they're willing to do whatever it takes to cut it down, especially the more they spend, the bigger the impact. But at the end of the day, yeah, we can actually put that number up. And if they're taking the actions that they're doing and working and reducing it, you'll see that number start to drop. I'm just thinking of a client right now, basically said we saved their company because their fraud rate was so high, they thought that they were going to lose all their clients. Like almost it was like a mass exodus. And when they came to us, I'm like, well, how much fraud do you have? And of course, they're like, I have no idea. I know it's a problem because we're getting a lot of customer complaints. So we launched a code which saw over 60% fraud. So more than half their traffic was not being exposed to real people. So I think it took us, we always say 90 days. I want to say it was like 45 days. It was pretty quick. There was some quick hits that we were able to take. And we cut that over 60% to under 30% in that first couple of weeks where they were with us. And they saw massive transformation. All of a sudden, their clients were like, wait a second, what did you do? Traffic quality is better. What's going on? We want more of that. And as they started getting those calls, they realized, okay, this is the direction we need to go. And we need to keep following this advice to improve our network. And now they're just crushing it. And of course, like I said, now we're at a level where as they bring on new traffic, depending on where they're buying their traffic from, they can spot check that in real time and just find out, am I getting good stuff? Am I hurting the network or benefiting the network? And that's a really good, easy thing to do.
So what are some scenarios that the fraud traffic can, or the fraud aspect can be or get so high?
Well, it depends on where you're buying traffic from. So every network, every channel of marketing that you can buy traffic from has different levels of fraud, right? So let's say if you're 100% organic, there's still fraud in there for a variety of reasons, but there's still fraud in there for it's minimal, right? It's probably under 5% if I remember correctly. Then you start buying from some of the bigger networks like Google and Facebook, and it's still about 10% fraud on average. Sometimes different campaigns have a bit more or less, but that's the average that we see is about 10%. Take it to the opposite extreme. Let's say you're buying affiliate-based traffic, which is a huge market segment. I mean, Amazon even has an affiliate network. The average affiliate network that we test is 45% fraud. So when you start looking at that, it all depends on how you manage your network. So if the fraudsters do a really good job in tricking you into thinking they're doing really good work for you, let's take lead generation, for example, right? Lots of companies drive traffic to a website to get a form filled out. Like we do the same thing. We have a form that we want them to fill out so our sales team can call them. Let's say the fraudsters were really good and they just picked up bogus information. All right, they picked up Virginia's information. They got your phone number, your email address, all the information. They go to a form, they fill it out, hit submit, and the marketing person says, wow, we're getting all these conversions. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, when the sales team starts calling them, they get you on the phone and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't fill out your form. That information doesn't generally get back to the marketing department. So the marketing department's saying, hey, these sources of traffic are driving lots of leads. Let's buy more of it. And what happens is they start inching their way up until they realize, oh, we're buying bad leads. We got to do something about it. So that's how it can get out of control with people making good decisions, just they're making good decisions based on bad data.
Okay. So in other words, departments need to communicate as well.
They need to communicate, and you need to have the right tools in place so that the data you're looking at, you can trust.
That's true. Cool. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
So what are some big goals you are looking to achieve in the next year or two?
Well, we're always looking to stay ahead of fraud as much as we can. It is a cat and mouse game, especially with AI. Iterations of different types of fraud technology can be spun out really quick and simple. And the barrier to entry is lessened because you don't need to be technical. You got people right now that can write apps that don't have to write a single line of code, right? They can just talk to an AI model and tell it what they're looking for, and it will write all the code for them, right? Same thing on the fraud side. A fraudster wants to commit fraud, they can say, I want a bot that does this. And as long as they give it the right prompts, it'll write a bot that will accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. So you're looking at all this stuff. So us staying at the head of the game, trying to always be one step ahead where we can, or be as reactive as we can as soon as new fraud comes out. And what's nice about our network is we have such a vast amount of traffic that when new types of fraud attacks happen, they start real small, like they're testing, and we can almost see what they're thinking as they're building them out and testing them. So our system picks up on it. Our engineers get to work, solve it before it becomes a big problem. So maintaining that edge is important to us over the next year or two or three, and connecting with more clients, growing the company. That's really the focus of what we're looking to do, where we've got customers love the product that we're selling them. So now it's just a matter of getting in front of more people.
What do you feel is the number one roadblock from achieving that goal?
The number one roadblock for the most part is probably going to be AI, right? Because AI, and this happened to us last year, tail end of last year, a new AI attack that got around every every fraud solution out in the marketplace that we know of. We have a lot of clients that use different systems and stuff like that. And we heard that this new type of attack got around everything. And it took us longer than usual. Normally, we solve problems every week. We see these new things pop up, we're able to solve them in a week. This was such a drastic change on the type of attack. It took us weeks to solve the problem until we eventually rolled out something in December and solved the problem. So that's always a what if they come up with a solution that just takes even longer to get to. That's a roadblock. So that's one of the roadblocks that we always try to stay ahead of. That's our biggest roadblock, I think.
Do you guys use AI to help you?
Yeah. We use AI on a lot of different things. We use it for research. My technical team will use it to spin up tests. We have a new type of attack that we want to test. So we might have to spin up different types of like websites or different types of attacks. Like we're testing our own system, being the fraudster ourselves and trying to hack around our system. So we use AI to help us write some of that code to be able to build those test models. We don't use it to write our code. We tried
Test
stuff like
your
that in the
stuff.
past. And we use it more for testing environments, things like that. We use AI in a lot of research projects and stuff like that. So we use the tools for a lot of different things.
What's the best advice that you have ever received?
The best advice I've received is probably going to be in the beginning, we weren't a standalone fraud solution. And I was working with a company that was a standalone fraud solution that later got bought by Google. And I was talking to one of the owners and they were growing like crazy. They just tipped over 50 employees. They're on their way to 100. And that's that tipping point when in companies where you start growing faster and faster. When it gets to the point you walk in the office, you don't recognize the faces in the office, right? I've been there with one of my other companies. And to me, that was the point. Once you broke 50 and you're continuing to add employees, that's where you're at. So my question to him was, how do you trust people to do the specifics that you did? Like in his case, he was a technical guy. He was the guy running the entire network and product line. And I said, how do you trust a new staff member to take over your baby, your network? And he says, I'll give you this piece of advice. He says, it was given to him by somebody. He says, look, I look for somebody who I think can do 80% of what I can do. Because in my mind, no one's going to do what I do, right? We're all egotistical. We think we're the best. And we don't think anybody's going to actually do it the way we do. So if we look for somebody we think can do at least 80% of what we're doing so that they can take on that job. And hey, if we need additional servers or additional resources, it's fine. Now I can go focus on something else. He goes, but in doing that, a lot of times you find people that do better jobs than you. And he goes, and that's the goal. That's what you're looking for. He goes, doesn't always happen. He goes, if I have somebody doing 80%, I'm happy. That's to me is a win. He goes, but 9 times out of 10, once they get the hang of the job, they do a better job than I was able to do.
What's the best advice you've ever given?
Don't hire friends in the business.
Or family?
I can't say family because I have a lot of family in my business. It is situational, but I've hired friends in the business before. And sometimes it gets to a point where you have to put your business hat on, make a decision, and it affects the relationship. And it's just not worth it. I have family that own businesses and I've given that same advice. And down the road, they've run into the same issue where a person was goofing off and had to basically let him go. And it was like, there was a friend card being pulled out and it gets real tough. And he was able to navigate that and not lose a friendship. But I've lost friends over business and that would never do that again.
So how do you make it work with a family situation?
I always tell a family, you're always going to be scrutinized because you're family. You got this position because you're family. You get this benefit because you're family. So I always tell my family, you've got to work harder than anybody else and never be questioned that you didn't earn your position. Because like I said, my son is my CTO, right? He's earned that position. And I tell him all the time, I said, you've got to make sure that people understand you've earned that position. You've got the technical skill to run the global network, to do all the stuff that you do. And never, ever have somebody question that. And that seems to work fine.
My husband has that situation because he works for his cousin's company.
Yeah. So again, was he told that same thing?
Definitely had to prove himself more so rather than just name by or job by association.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing. It's tough. Like I said, it's tough. I mean, at one point I had my mother-in-law working in the company and she was working for my wife. So imagine how a mother is usually in charge and now, but inside the office, when they get to the office, the roles reverse and the mother couldn't adjust. So it made for an interesting office environment.
I bet. So what's the true ROI I think we might have touched on this though, but like the true ROI of ad fraud prevention.
On average, that's 25%. But I think when I did the math on it, it was more like 37% because if you're losing 25% and just cut that out, okay, you just reduced your spend and you've saved 25%. But if you take that 25%, and what we teach our clients to do is don't stop spending it, just invest it into a real audience. Then you see that 25% left on the other side. I thought at one time I did the math, it was like 37%. And that's on average. Some companies see more, some companies see less. But for some of these companies that we work with, 5 or 10% lift in comparison to what they have to pay for that, it's golden.
What about the dark side of affiliate marketing? So identifying and preventing affiliate fraud.
That's the hard part. I'll give you an example. In my last company, we had basically affiliates that were helping to drive traffic to the site and run things. And they were always trying to find ways to cheat the system. And we actually had the fraud detection system in place to try to help with that. And any affiliate network worth its weight always has like vetting in the beginning, like they try to vet out the affiliate when they first sign up before they actually turn them on and give them an account. I remember this one time that one of my managers came over to me. He goes, "Oh my God, you will never believe what happened." Because one of our things was, hey, you want to be able to talk to the person. You want to have Facebook, a LinkedIn profile, basic things that you can do some background checking and stuff like that. And they uploaded their picture to the system and everything else. And he happened to recognize the picture. And he went and did a Google reverse lookup and found the picture. And they were pretending to be somebody else that was in the news. And it was a girl, and this goes back years ago, that was in a bike race and got killed.
Oh.
And it was the obituary picture that they used as their profile picture because they were trying to cheat the system. They didn't want to put their own credentials up. So it gets pretty dark when you're looking at stuff like that, when they're using dead people's pictures and posing as them. And again, it's all about them trying to trick you out of your money. Because in the affiliate marketing world, good affiliates expect to get paid very quick because they're trying to take the money that they're earning from you and then drive in more traffic or whatever they're doing with it. They need to get paid quickly. And usually you'll see affiliate programs pay net 7 or net 14, like very quick. Meanwhile, let's say it's like an e-commerce website and people put credit cards in there. It could take months before chargeback makes it back to that vendor. I actually had a company that was selling airplane tickets. They said it takes upwards of 9 months for them to find out that the credit card was stolen. Meanwhile, they're getting paid every 7 days. So they could stick around for a long period of time before getting caught. And then when they get caught, their account gets shut down, they disappear, they start up another account.
Yeah.
So it gets pretty crazy.
So the entrepreneurial journey and the methods used for gaining visibility, what can you share with us about that?
With entrepreneurship, it's funny because I always consider myself an entrepreneur. I was always doing, even when I was young, always doing something to try to make money. But it's just persistence. I mean, that's the biggest thing. A lot of people quit too soon on something. They got an idea, and if they really believe it to be a good idea, they talk to people and everyone's convincing them it's a good idea. You just got to really not stop. You got to be persistent with the idea and just continue to work it. The last company I had was an ad network, which general term for what it was. It wasn't a new idea. They've been around for a while, and I had a good idea, a different direction I wanted to take it. And I'm like, we're going to run with this. And you just keep pushing, even though everyone's like, well, it's been done before. And I'm like, okay. And the company did phenomenal. You just got to be persistent with what you do. Don't quit prematurely.
Do you have any tips that you can share on how you push through those low moments?
I think it's just being sold, drinking the Kool-Aid yourself, right? Being sold on your own idea just as much as you're trying to sell that idea. I'll give you an example. When we launched this company, we brought on a lot of employees from a previous company and we got the office up, we got everything going. And I'm like, great. We just incurred all this monthly expense and we don't have a customer yet. So of course we went out and raised capital. How to raise capital? Get a second mortgage, go sell some, at the time I had some Bitcoin, I sold some Bitcoin, go get cash advances, go get different business loans. And when I was doing that, all of a sudden you turn around, you're like, oh my God, how'd I get here? If this doesn't succeed, I lose everything that I worked for my whole life. So it just gets persistent. Like you just have to focus on getting the job done. Like it's be persistent, work on finding a way to make it work.
Don't dwell on the dark part.
You know what? You get stuck in there and there's always a little bit of luck, right? Because sometimes you go down that path and it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Like we all hear about the Elon Musks of the world and the Jobs of the world, but what about the tens and thousands of people that come before them that bet big and lost? We don't hear those stories. You don't see those stories much.
Yeah.
So everyone thinks it's just, oh, it's so easy, you know?
The overnight
You just,
success.
right. It's a 30-year overnight success, right? That's what you're looking at.
Well, we have gone a bunch of different spots and you've accommodated my squirrel brain, so thank you. But is there
No problem.
anything that we haven't talked about yet that you wanted to share with us?
Not really. I think we hit a lot of topics on this podcast, which is kind of neat. Trying to think. Yeah, the biggest thing is just again, I've built a lot of companies bootstrapping. So my brain works on a bootstrap mentality, even at home, watching every penny and being careful where it gets spent, make sure that where you're spending it, it makes sense. But when you're building a company, sometimes people get so caught up in just like, I need this, I need this, I need this. And on next thing you know, they got this monthly bill that they just can't afford. And that mismanagement of funds is the number one reason to go out of business. Was it 90% of the businesses that start up and go out of business the first year? And usually it's for mismanagement of funds. So my biggest piece of advice is pay attention to the details, right? Pay attention to where every dollar goes. Do you absolutely need it at this stage of the business? Because again, if mismanagement of funds is the number one way to go out of business, that's something you want to address from day one.
Perfect. Where can we go to learn more about you and what you do?
For me, it's easy. LinkedIn is my platform of choice. I like it because there's no politics on it, or at least very, very few. So it's business related and everything else. I'm easy to find, Rich Kahn on LinkedIn. Or I'll tell people a lot of times, if you go to Anura.io, we have a lot of resources. We have, I think, the only comprehensive guide on ad fraud. It's like an 80-page ebook, lots of details, broken up into chapters, easy to read. So if you're trying to learn about the space and get information and tips and stuff like that, we've got a ton of resources that we publish on the website, and we have a couple of blogs coming out every week on the same topic. So plenty to read, plenty to find out before picking up the phone and calling somebody. There's plenty there to self-learn.
Where did you come up with the business name?
So interesting. So everyone always asks that. So I always tell people Google it. But ultimately, the story goes like this. In my last company that my wife and I started, it was an ad network. And we had a mascot of a frog. Because one of the things I'm like, at the time, this was back 2003 when we started the company, we should have a mascot, make it fun, have that personal vibe. So we came up with a frog as a mascot because we lived in a neighborhood called Frog Hollow Golf Course, and it just became the frog is what we're going to use. So when we built this company, this technology was built inside that company originally before we spun it off as a separate company. So we're trying to figure this out. And my wife turns to me and she goes, "What about Anura?" And I'm like, and I like nonsensical names. I grew up in the era, like I said, I grew up in the 90s on the internet where all the companies' names were nonsensical, right? It wasn't like WeSellInsurance.com. It was Google, it was Yahoo. It was like these weird names that companies were named. And I'm starting to see some companies going back to those naming conventions that I enjoyed. So anyway, long story short, I'm like, where do you get that from? She goes, well, it's the actual classification for a frog in the animal kingdom. The classification is called Anura. I'm like, oh, that's great. So it's a tie back to the old, I love it. And that's where we stuck with it.
That's fun. That's cool. Well, thank you again very much for being with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. This was fun.